I'm captivated. I'm captivated. I'm captivated.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Tea Time with Afternoon Social. I'm Teresa Lauterbach, your host, and today we're talking again with Marion Nixon. She's a positive mindset coach. She's been with us all week and had some great information so far. So if you've missed any of those videos, please go back and check that out. We've been a little bit serious about talking about overcoming some self-doubt and getting into self-confidence. But today we're going to talk to her a little bit about where she lives and what is Cape Town, South Africa like. She kind of told me a little bit that you're between two oceans and the mountains. And right now, this will be airing here in November. So for me in the Midwest in the United States, it's approaching winter time, but for her, it's summertime. So, Marion, I'm glad you're back with us again today and here on Friends Day Fridays. And I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm fascinated to hear more about where you live.
Hi. So Cape Town is right on the tip of Africa. It's about as far south as, well, not geographically, there is some place that's slightly more further south, but when you look at the map, it looks as though we're as far south as you can go. Mm-hmm. And yes, the Atlantic and Ocean and the Indian, we're on a peninsula. Well, peninsula is part of the city, and on one side is the Indian Ocean, on the other is the Atlantic. They don't actually meet at a place called Cape Point, which is the point of the peninsula. They meet at this place called Cape Agulhas, which is further up the coast, which I think is the southernmost point. But for a long time, it was believed that the two oceans met at Cape Point. And so it's a nature reserve, and you can go, there's a funicular you can take right to the end and walk out and see where these two oceans theoretically meet. And I chose this background picture that you've been looking at all week because it shows the mountain that's in the middle of the city. So the peak immediately behind me is Devil's Peak, and you'll see behind that there's a mountain where the top is quite flat. That's the well-known Table Mountain. It's called such because it has a flat top. Mm-hmm. Devil's Peak gets its name on the other side of the flat top mountain, where you can see there's a lower section. You can't behind there's another sort of peaky, low peak, and that mountain that peak. And that's the bit that slopes down. It looks a little bit like a lion. And so the peak part of that is called Lion's Head. And there's a legend that says a man called Rip van Winkle was a prolific smoker with a pipe. And he was smoking on Lion's Head. And the devil came and wanted, and I can't remember the conversation, but basically they got into a competition, and the devil sat on Devil's Peak and Rip van Winkle sat on Lion's Head, and they had the smoking competition. And when a certain wind blows, it blows clouds over the mountain, over Table Mountain, and we normally call it tablecloth because it comes across the top and then it drops down the sides. But this legend was that it was actually the smoke from these two pipes on either end.
Okay.
So that's Devil's Peak. And the grassy section in front, behind me in front of that mountain is a common. I live very close to this area, and it's a historic patch of ground that has been left undeveloped. for as a conservatory. And it's a very popular a place for people to walk and exercise. And back in the very early colonial days, it was used as a gathering for military and for their. So, and then we also have one of the main floral kingdoms in the world called Fynbos, which is Afrikaans, which is a derivative of the Dutch language, and meaning fine bush or natural vegetation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the biggest floral kingdoms, but it's in a very small over quite a small area, geographically small area. I mean, in terms of the world, I mean, it's a big physical area, but as floral kingdoms goes, it's a small geographic area, but a very high level of plant this very specific plant life, and yeah. In terms of people, we have huge cultural diversity. We've got the descendants of the original inhabitants, who were a small group of very small people, often called Bushmen or San. They were hunter-gatherers. And then we have the influx of Europeans who came as part of the spice trade, sailing from Europe around Africa to India. And the Cape Point became a halfway place where they could stop. There was water running off the streams running from the mountain, so they could get fresh water. When they discovered there were some people here, they traded for edible food, foods and animals, meat. Mm-hmm. And there was also a particular stone, actually, or when I say stone, it was quite a big rock that was used as a post office. So a ship going one way, people would leave letters. A ship from Europe would leave letters there, and then the next ship coming from India would stop, collect the letters, and take them through to Europe. So people so there was a post office stone. and then the Dutch decided to actually make a colony here, and to set up a vegetable garden and actively grow food to supply the ships. Mm-hmm. And then during the wars, over the wars in Europe, the British took over because they defeated the Dutch in some other war. So they then came and colonized the Cape. So we have, amongst the Europeans, we have people who speak the Dutch, Afrikaans, which, as I said, is a derivative of the Dutch language. We have also people who are English speaking, and the brown-skinned people are a mixture of the original inhabitants, some of whom have intermarried with African people who moved down from the north. And we also had, in the early colonial days, there was slavery. So we have Malay people here that were brought originally as their families came across as slaves. We have some Indian people Indian people actually went further up in South Africa, further up the coast. They were brought as indentured laborers, but their families have dispersed all over the country. So we have an Indian population here, and as I said, also the black population. And the black population, the original Africans, is also diverse. There's a multitude of different African people, tribal peoples. Yeah. Some of them speaking related languages, some of them speaking completely different languages. And these days we have immigrants from all over the world as well. So we are a real hotspot.
Now, how large of a
community, and we have Portuguese and Italians and Greeks and you name it.
How large of a city is Cape Town?
I always forget to look that up.
Is it comparable to like New York City, or is it more?
Oh no, it would be much smaller in population, much smaller. Yeah. No, it's as worldwide city goes, it's not that big.
Okay, yeah, because I'm in the Kansas City area, in the metro areas. I'm not even sure how many, but it's just probably not a couple of million, so it's not a large.
Yeah, in my head, I've got the figures 4 million, but I don't know where that came from, so I'm not sure. But it's in the greater scheme of things, it's not a large city, but by South African standards, it's one of the top cities that we have. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you grow up all in Cape Town, or?
No, I grew up further up the coast in a town called Port Elizabeth, which is probably half the size of Cape Town. So it's a sort of secondary city in the South African thing. But it's also quite spread out, and it is the result of a particular settlement of British settlers. What happened with some of the original Dutch settlers in the Cape, they became farmers and cattle farmers, and they slowly moved up the coast. Mm-hmm. And there were African tribes moving down, and they met at a place at a particular river called the Fish River, which and there was constant warring. Not occasionally it blew up into a full-scale sort of battlement, but often it was just cattle raiding and niggling and little skirmishes and stuff. That was ongoing, and the colony saw it as a constant threat. Mm-hmm. So the British offered a package deal to people in Britain who wanted to improve their lives to come out, but they didn't tell them they were coming out to thick bush. And there was no settlement. They were literally dumped in the bush. They had to clear the bush and create farms for themselves. So some of them actually gave up and moved down the coast to Cape Town. But some of them did actually establish themselves and create farms, and some of them shifted from the farms onto and created towns. And there was a little town called Grahamstown where I actually went to university, but the main one was the coastal town of Port Elizabeth, and because also that became the exit for the produce that was produced because it had a harbour. Mm-hmm. So that.
So now, what would be your favorite day trip adventure that you like to? Which one of your favorite things you like to do there?
One of my favorites is in fact hiking on the mountain. I don't go all the way up to the top of the mountain, but walking on the slopes of the mountain is one of my favorite pastimes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, swimming in one of our multiple beaches.
I know that's probably envious about us in the Midwest right now, is you get to go to the beach whenever you want. I mean, we're facing snow here pretty soon.
Yeah. It's a big deal. Very occasionally there will be a little bit of snow on top of the mountain. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge event for us. Further out from Cape Town, probably about 2 to 3 hours drive away, there are mountains that do get snow in winter, mm-hmm. but nothing like you get.
Yeah, we have to get out the shovels and
we actually have a Mediterranean climate here.
Okay.
This little part, and that further up the coast and inland it's different, but around Cape Town we have a Mediterranean climate.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's some of your favorite kind of touristy things that you have there in Cape Town? Do you have antique shops or?
There are some, but there's quite a few outdoor markets that people who come here. And there's a shopping precinct in the harbour called the Waterfront. It's that a lot of restaurants and shops, and that a lot of people enjoy very much. We have some various cultural museums. We have an aquarium. We have a world-renowned botanical garden on the slopes of Table Mountain, and a lot of outdoor activities. We have the biggest cycle race in the world. I think biggest timed cycle race. I think it is. I think they cut. Well, now with COVID, they don't allow so many people, but they eventually cut it off at a maximum 34,000 people riding in it. So we have several running races that people enjoy. Very very outdoor.
Very outdoor. Yeah. It actually would sound kind of fun if there was a picnic area in the botanical gardens to sit down and have a cup of tea.
Yes, people do picnic there.
Yeah.
And we have quite a few parks in the city where people like to picnic.
It sounds like a very fascinating place. I'm not sure if I would get the opportunity to travel there one day, but it sounds like it'd be a fun place to visit. So I think we're getting close on our time today, and thank you so much for giving us that information about Cape Town. I love learning about new places, and I'm sure all of our ladies will be interested in maybe learning some more. And if you'd like to ask Marion some questions, I'm going to leave all her contact information with the video, and she's going to join us one more time tomorrow and explain some of her programs that she has in her coaching business. And so thank you so much for giving that information to us today, Marion, and we'll see you tomorrow. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Looked like you had something to say. I was going to let you say something.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I look forward to talking again tomorrow.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm captivated.